How's it going, everybody? Afro DJ Mac here, and I'm very excited to share with you the DX7 Digi-Struments Ableton Live Pack I've made. So first we want to add this to our browser. I'm going to click on Folder, locate my project, and then I'm just going to grab this folder that says DX7 Presets and click Open. And now it's in my browser right here, and I have 3 different folders. So I recorded 18 different presets, and while recording, I recorded through a microphone going into my Fender Deluxe tube amplifier, and here are all those sounds. At the same time, I also recorded the direct output from the DX7 itself, and here are those 18 sounds. And then what I also did is I combined both the amplified sound and the direct input sounds into these different instruments. So let me open up one. I'll do an amplified, and I'll put this clouds sound in here and just let you hear it. So what's nice about the amplified sound is that you get this sort of, it's coming out of a speaker. It's not just a line in. So you get a more kind of real life feel, like this has really been performed and played out of an instrument. And on all of these packs here, you're going to have control over the attack. So you can make this swell in a little bit. You can have control over the decay and the sustain. So you can make this sound more like a plucked sound, I suppose, and also the release. So you can make that to however you want to sculpt the sound over time. There's a low pass filter, which you can see has been created with this EQ8, as well as a high pass, which also uses the same EQ8, and the resonance affects both. So you have some interesting sound sculpting possibilities here using that. I'm going to close the EQ8 down. And overdrive is doing a couple things at once. So it's affecting the shaper amount on the sampler here. It's also playing around with this instrument rack. Now this instrument rack is divided into 2 parts. I'm separating the low frequencies from the mids and the highs, and letting the lows come in nice and clean, unaffected, so that your bass is always solid. And the mids and highs have an overdrive on it. And you can play around with some of these parameters on this rack to really dirty up the sound, how much filtering you want to do on there. You can determine where the low cut happens. Right now I have it at 160 Hertz. That's down here, and you can change that so you can affect only the really high frequencies, or you can allow all the low stuff to come in. So that's going to play around with the knob here on your EQ3, and also the one here on this EQ3. So that's the overdrive knob. Now just to let you kind of hear the difference, I'm going to also open up this clouds on the DI here. And slightly different sound. So let me open up a combo instrument now, and I'm gonna pick, we'll say, this Mellotron. So I'm gonna drop it in and replace that. So here we have a combo instrument, this Mellotron, which I thought sounded kind of like a Mellotron. And the way the combo instruments work is when you open them up, you have this thing called the DX7 House, and that has 2 chains. There's one chain with that amplified version, and another chain with the direct input version. And here you can play around with the volume of each one. Now we're only hearing the direct input. I can turn down the direct input so we can only hear the amp. And there's some slight differences from those. You can also pan them out, so I'll put one to the left and one to the right, which help give you like a nice wide sound. And beyond this, if I just close this up a bit, you also have this effect rack called filter, chorus, delay, because it has filter, chorus, and delay. And that is all controlled here. And this rack, since it's after this one, will affect both the amplified and the direct volume. So the advantage of this particular setup is if you want to do a filter on everything, what you do in here is you're going to play around with this knob, and that affects both different sounds. Same here. Resonance will affect both. I chose an auto filter here just because it has a different sound than the EQ8, which you will find inside each one of these individual racks. So this one is being And now you notice that's only affecting one side because I'm only playing around with one of them, and I can go on the other one and we can really sculpt some interesting sounds on these different racks here. So you can play around with that as using the EQ8 individually on each sound, or you can use the auto filters, which is on both. I've set up a chorus instrument here, which we'll pull out. And this is just putting chorus again on the highs and the mids and not the lows, again to preserve your bass sounds. And basically, you can turn up the, and let's just make this visible on our screen here. There's our chorus, so we can play with the dry and wet. And we can also play with the motion, which simultaneously affects the amount and the rate over here on your chorus. I'll turn that down. And we also have delay. And it's basically just a ping pong delay. We have a dry wet. We have the feedback amount. And we have the time. So the time right now is going to be set to repitch mode, which gives us those kind of squiggly, stretchy sounds. Pitch is getting twisted up when we turn the time. So that's how these all work. And basically, each one is its own different sound. So if I open up, say, my vibrato trumpet here, we have the same basic setup, just with different sounds. And if you look inside these individual samplers, you can see that I'm operating on usually 4 or 5 different samples, and each one gets its own key range here to kind of give you the most authentic DX7 sound. And you'll notice over time in the vibrato trumpet, a vibrato kicks in. And we have a whole bunch, we got a brass, there's a whole bunch of different sounds. And they all work more or less the same. So all in all, we have 18 amplified presets, we have 18 direct input, and we have 18 combos. So there's a lot of potential for sound design here. I think it's a pretty cool instrument. The DX7 has this very 80s sound to it. It's a neat synth, and I hope you'll check this out and enjoy what we've got here. Thanks a lot.